In this video, I'm going to tell you guys how I dominated basically every standardized test in high school. It has nothing to do with intelligence. It's not because I have some special, super powerful spatial reasoning skills or anything like that. I mean, for that matter, Chelsea's spatial reasoning skills are much higher than mine. It has nothing to do with inherent ability. It has to do with decision making. And it has to do with noticing what matters and what doesn't matter. Usually when people look at education, they do it even though education is all about your mind, people do education very unthinkingly. They basically think education involves getting up, showing up, going to school, doing some boring homework, finishing, repeating, and doing that the next day. And that's a way to look at education. It's an extremely bad way to look at it, but it's a way to look at it. The way that I looked at education was education is a way to transfer information, ability, skills, cognitive strength, whatever. It could be transferred from a teacher to a student, from a book to a student, and the student can build it themselves through a series of challenges and puzzles, but that was the goal of it. And so I would often ask myself, what is the fastest and easiest way for me to develop these skills? And often the tests that I did extremely well on, it would be shocking because it would be the specific test that no one in the school would do well on. Like it would be a test where that in that particular class, people only ever got, ones and twos on the AP exam, and I would get a five. The reason for this, it would, again, nothing to do with intelligence. It has to do with how I was looking at it. So would ask myself, well, how can I get the information into my head best, pretty much? And so that's why I would almost never read my school textbooks because I could see they were not written to be usefully communicative. I would almost always use the Barron's books or some other type of standardized test preparation guide to get the information. If I'd been doing it today, I'd also have watched a bunch of Khan Academy videos that just didn't exist at the time. And the most important thing, and this is probably the most important thing, is I just did not prioritize attendance. If you look at my grades compared to my attendance rate, probably is the worst attendance of any A student and probably also the worst attendance of any D student in my school, probably in the history of the school. Just my attendance was terrible. And it's not because I was not doing anything. I wasn't just staying at home and just fooling around. I was like this guy in this picture. I was staying at home so I could learn more efficiently and more quickly when it mattered. And so the first example of this was when I was taking the SAT biology exam. Everybody else in my school was going to class to learn and planning to take the SAT biology exam. They're just going to school, and the teacher had said mostly people don't do well in the SAT biology exam after they take this class. So he had told us that what he was doing wasn't going to work. He already told us that, and yet they just persisted, like lemmings, like sheep, to go on and do what they knew wasn't going to work, what the teacher had repeatedly told us wasn't going to work. And so I said, well, I'm not going to do that because that's too stupid for words. So during that spring break, I studied a ton. Used the SAT, the Barron's SAT biology book. I studied a ton. And I learned more in that week than I had in the previous several months. And here's the critical thing. This is what made the difference. And this is what I did for many other exams later on. Having realized how much I could learn in 1 week, spring break was over. Doesn't matter. I took another week. I just didn't go to school for that next week. And the result is by the old scoring system, I had a 770. By the modern scoring system, that would have been an 800. When you're doing education, if you start to prioritize attendance over learning, you're going to be at a disadvantage compared to somebody who prioritizes learning over attendance. And where this is going to come the most is if you have something important that you're like, oh, I have a term paper due, I have a test tomorrow, quiz, whatever. You can say, well, so I'm going to have to show up because I have to show up to school no matter what. Like it's this weird psychological compulsion, but you just don't. You just really don't actually need to show up to school ever. So instead of doing that, you might say, okay, well, I have a test tomorrow. I need 12 hours to learn the material. I don't have 12 hours tonight to do it, so I'm going to need a couple extra days. And take a day off, take a few days off, take whatever you need to actually learn it. The point of school is not attendance. School is not supposed to be prison. It's not just like a place where you need to be. It's supposed to be, theoretically, a place where you actually learn. So always ask yourself this: what can I do to learn the most effectively? And a lot of times, that's going to be not go to school that day. It won't be every time. Some days there's going to be to go to school. But be open to that possibility. Recognize that sometimes the tactically right decision to make in that moment will actually be to not go to school that day and do something else instead. And that something else isn't going to be to go to the bowling alley. It's going to be learning or studying in some way to give yourself a massive tactical advantage over your peers who are going to obsessively, lemming-like, sheep-like, compulsively go to school no matter what, even when it doesn't make sense. Don't be like that. Think through it. Think about this for yourself. Make the decisions that work for you and see what's going to help you get the best education for yourself.